Anyways, for our next topic, we'll take a look at the Globalization Chess Game. And we're going to have a number of gurus here on stage. The first is Llull Mancas, the Vice President and Managing Director of APAC Booking.com. Followed by Richard Dodds, the Vice President of APAC MessageBird. And thirdly, Shahid Nizami, Managing Director of APAC Hubspot. And moderating this session is Patrick de Laive, the founder of the Next Web. ต่อไปนะคะเราจะมี panel discussion กับ 3 ท่านนะคะในเรื่องของ globalization นะคะทั้ง 3 คนที่จะขึ้นมานะคะมีประสบการณ์ในการวางกลยุทธ์การตลาดในภูมิภาคต่างๆอย่างเช่นเอเชียและก็โอเชียนะคะ so definitely there is going to be a lot to be discussed นะคะสำหรับคนที่อยากจะได้ audio นะคะแปลภาษานะคะสามารถติดต่อทีมของเราได้นะคะอยู่ข้างหลังโต๊ะข้างหลังได้เลยค่ะ and I hope that there are some people that are going to stay with us because definitely this is a session that you cannot miss. So without further ado, let me introduce those speakers onto the stage. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here. My name is Patrick. Thank you all for joining us today. I believe you all flew in from Singapore, but you all have different backgrounds, different names, different stories, different companies. So let's start off with a short intro, like tell us who you are, and then we'll dive into the discussion.
Perfect. Well, first of all, thank you very much for having us. It's a pleasure to be here. So hi, everyone. I'm Llull. I'm the Vice President and Managing Director for Booking.com in Asia Pacific.
Thank you very much, Patrick. Yeah, so hi, everyone. My name is Richard Dodds. I am the Vice President for Asia Pacific for MessageBird, and we're a B2B communications platform.
A bit closer to your mouth.
Thank you for having me here. My name is Shahid. I was just called Shahid. Shahid means a dead man, so it's not Shahid, it's Shahid. And I am the Managing Director for Hubspot APAC. Hubspot is a SaaS company, a B2B SaaS company into marketing and CRM software.
Okay, so 3 amazing companies and great brains here. Let's start off with the topic for today. And one of the things we're going to talk about is international expansion. 3 great companies, 2 B2B, 1 B2C, but there's also a B2B part in the Booking.com company. So maybe I'd like to ask you to elaborate a little bit on your go-to-market strategy and your expansion strategy in the APAC region. Angel.
Sure. So Booking.com is a global platform. We've been in the travel industry for more than 20 years. And we started back in 1996 in Amsterdam, right? Since the very early stage, we wanted to build a global, scalable platform, and that for us was extremely important, to build up a product that it was scalable to multiple countries, right? Into Asia, we've been here since 12 years ago. And basically, we started, because the brand was very well recognized in Europe, so we started...
Let's test that one
yes.
sec. Who knows Booking.com?
Anyone booked Booking.com in the last... Oh, okay, I see.
Yeah.
Now I feel good. Thank you very much for that.
Who knows Agoda?
Okay, same company, by the way.
Yeah. Who knew that Agoda was also Booking.com?
Okay, I see some hands up. That's pretty good.
Okay.
That's pretty
good. So you
good.
have your brand recognition. That's good here.
That's good. Yeah. That's good. So we initially we brought a lot of European customers to Asia Pacific, and with time goes on, we've been able to also build a lot of travel between Asia Pacific countries, between each other, but also domestic travelers moving up. So basically, how we've done that expansion is through localization, right? We currently are having 51 offices in Asia Pacific, and for us, having local offices is very important. Because each country is different, you have different customer behaviors, different ways of working. And therefore, for us, having that market knowledge in the local place, it's very important. But not only localizing the operations, also localizing your products, also localizing your marketing. Those pieces are very, very important for us. I can give a couple of examples if you want, but from a product perspective, would be payments. I think that the way that payments works in Asia Pacific, it's pretty different. So we had to customize to the needs of the customers that we see in this part of the world.
And to my knowledge, you didn't do payments in the first place, right? You started off with just booking or making a reservation, and later on you took on payments. Is that?
Well, historically, Booking.com, in order to make a transaction, you always have to give the credit card, and that's how we started. But then you come to Asia Pacific, and you realize that there are many countries that the credit card penetration it's low, it's single-digit penetration, and therefore you need to innovate, you need to invest, and making sure that the alternative methods of payments that you're offering to the customers are adequate for each country. And this is something that we have invested quite heavily in the past years, and it's quite important.
So here in Thailand, are you integrated with line payments, or which ones?
Yeah, we're working with different providers, right? And the idea is to build up as much more methods of payments possible. And each country is different. We have different payment methods in Indonesia, then different payment methods in India. And our idea is to continue. Payments is one example, but also I think that, for example, localizing supply is also extremely important. And an example would be ryokans in Japan, right? If you don't have ryokans in Japan, it's hard to compete. So
I want to ask one more question about the payments, because Booking is very much known for doing hundreds and tons of A/B tests at the same time. And can you share something about? Have you gone to a market where you didn't implement the local payment yet? What did that do with conversion once you did implement it?
Yeah, I'm assuming that everyone is familiar with A/B testing. So basically how it works is that you put one version of your web page, and then you do a modification, and you put it in front of your customers. And the web or the app that performs better, that one is the one that will stay in the future, right? So yes, we've done different testings, right? I think that in terms of the payment methods, of course, the more you adequate to the customer needs, the better the conversion is going to be. And that's something that we've seen before. It's always hard to predict.
Is it significant? Is it like a huge difference?
Yeah, I would love to give you exactly the increase in conversion that we have, but unfortunately I can't. But I can, yeah, of course. I mean, anything that we change is going to improve conversion. If not, we would not do that.
So the advice is to implement the local payment.
I think the advice, more than implementing local payments, the advice would be try to test as much things as possible, trying to learn very fast, and for that you have to admit a certain degree of failure, right? Majority of the A/B testings that we do, they're not working, but what it means is that you're going to learn more, and then the next change that you're going to do, the likelihood of having a better conversion is going to increase. So that would be my advice, right? If you want to scale, learn a lot, fail fast, fail small, but fast, and then you're going to be better off.
Perfect. Thanks.
Cool. Well, look, I think the MessageBird story is a little bit different. We always knew that we had to be global. I think as a company that, as a platform that has to reach 7 billion mobile devices around the world, we always knew that we had to have local billing, local language translation for our local customers. And then there's varying degrees of additional localization that we had to implement. I think the Asia story started off with us maybe a little less strategic. I think we were led out here by some of our big clients, being Uber and Google, who really needed to scale across the world as fast as possible, but they didn't really, let's say, take into account how complex all the different local telecom regulations might be to launch voice or SMS services. And that's where a platform like MessageBird adds a lot of value. And I think in our own localization to our customers across Asia, what we did, I think very well, is think locally and be very focused. We knew that we weren't going to be the be-all and end-all of communications platforms for all companies across all of Asia. So we picked our battles. We used a very data-driven approach to kind of pick out which of those markets we thought were more or less likely to be successful. We weren't 100% in our first picking, but I think we definitely had some sound logic at that. And that allowed us to really come into markets, resource effectively. I think one of the challenges with globalization if you go after too much of a global segment, you can spread yourself a little too thin. And by doing that, you will lose the ability to actually capture what we call kind of beachheads. So a beachhead is somewhere where you can land a flag for the company, create a certain vibe, create some momentum, and then you use that beachhead to kind of continue to expand across. And I think if you are unable to commit the appropriate resource and put the correct amount of mind share on each of these beachheads, you can quickly find yourself, as I said, spreading yourself very thin in these markets.
Yeah, so what was the moment when MessageBird started to really expand internationally? It's still a fairly young company, as far as I know,
Yeah.
or at least the people that work on it are still very young.
I'll take that. Look, I think, straight away, I think we knew as a European company, as a Dutch company originally, that our total addressable market is very limited if we think little, and if we don't look at globalization as an opportunity to increase our value. So I think straight away it started. I think picking the markets and picking the regions which were more or less likely to grow has been the complex side of things, and I think we've gone in and we've pulled back in certain markets. But yeah, I think from the beginning we've always thought as a global company.
And you joined 4 years ago?
4 years ago, yeah. So.
And were you directly responsible for the expansion in APAC region?
Yeah, so I was the first person to be hired in Asia, and I think have been a pivotal part. Obviously, there's a huge amount of resource that goes into that to help it. But
so if you're the first person they hired, that's where your kind of like local approach
I think
doesn't really work, right? I mean, you're clearly not from Asia, I would say, but you have had experience in the APAC region already.
Yeah, and I think actually the localization of talent is an incredibly important one, and I think there's, as with all localization strategies, there's varying, let's say, degrees of localization. But if you were to take, let's say, a local person working in a local market, selling a local product as the endpoint of localization, there are certain trade-offs in why you can't do that in every single market today across Asia.
Is that capital?
Sorry?
Is that capital, for instance?
No, I actually think the capital is not the problem. I think that there is enough liquidity in the market to fund any strategy that works. So I think the problem is that as a company that has a DNA in its culture, it is very hard, it's very easy to fall into the trap of just saying, all right, I'm just going to hire a single rep in a WeWork and hope that they can capture that market or start us and prove that market. So we at MessageBird have taken a different approach. We'll hire local people, but base them in Singapore and have them fly in and out of a market to really prove that. And therefore, you can really kind of control the culture, the DNA of a company, which we believe is a competitive edge for us in the market. So I think there is a trade-off with localization. If you are placing people in a market by themselves, you have to accept that they're going to be less productive, less cohesive with the company unit. So. Not saying that you can't do that. I just think that companies need to acknowledge that there is a trade-off between those two factors.
And you mentioned when you started to look into the international out role, you mentioned that you were having a data-driven approach. What were the variables you were looking at?
I'd love to tell you what it looks like now. It's a very complex, well-thought-out algorithm, but it was actually very simple. We took the kind of 5 factors that we thought determined success. A big weighting went on population growth, and the other weighting that we thought was actually very useful for us actually was the adoption of mobile, the mobile penetration rate. So the interesting thing about Asia, it's a digital native consumer market, and what I mean by that is that most parts of Asia, not speaking for all, but they didn't grow up with dial-up 2G, 3G. They skipped that whole market and went straight into 4G and now 5G. And what that means is that they are digitally very competitive. They expect a brand to engage with them very competitively. The use case I like to liken is that, previous to kind of 2000, if you wanted to book an airline, you'd go to a travel agent. You'd walk into a store, you'd have an interaction with your travel agent. But specifically, I think in Asia, that concept is very foreign. That access, because of companies like Booking, is available to you immediately, and you can execute on it very quickly. So, yeah, definitely the population growth and I'd say the speed of adoption of technology has been the two biggest factors for us in determining markets in Asia.
Well, one last question before we go on to you. Was there, you also said like in the beginning we did research, we were close to, being perfect in the countries that we predicted to go to. So that also means that you also had a few countries, or at least one, where you thought, okay, mobile penetration is high, population growth is high, this should be perfect country for us. And then you decided to go in, but apparently the freely available data was not supporting your...
and I think that the idea of globalization is...
I guess my question is, which country was that?
It was a local country in Asia, but it was actually the tax side of things that prohibited us as a foreign company from being competitive in this market. And we didn't know that until we went into that market and figured it out. But
that makes sense.
Regulatory-wise.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, so HubSpot is a 13-year-old company, and we are a US-based company. For the first 7 years, we were only a US-focused business. And in the last 6 years, we've actually opened 7 global offices across the world. And now about 40% of our new business revenue comes from outside the US. So we've really seen the benefits of expanding outside of the home country in the last 6 years. And we have a 3-step formula when it comes to international expansion. And we actually have a proper playbook around it as well. So the first step is to really let markets pull you in. When I talk about that, the idea here is that build amazing content and lead with inbound strategy. So when we opened the Singapore office, we were actually getting tons of leads already through the inbound channel before we decided to get into the Singapore market. The second strategy is to do a market assessment, and we look at different factors. The first is the raw potential of the market. So let's say if our focus is technology companies, we look at all the technology companies in the country, multiply by that by the average sales price for our products. So that's the raw potential. And then we discount it by factors like what's the culture difference from our home country, which is the US, to the market we are entering into. And more the difference, the more difficult it will be for us to apply the same sales playbook. We look at the digital sophistication because we are a B2B SaaS player. And then we look at the last part, which is the complexity to do business in a market, which is determined by employment laws, taxes, so on and so forth. So then we look at the raw potential and then discount it by all these other factors. That tells us whether the market is a good market to enter or not. And the last part of the 3-step formula is to look at the profitability of the market. So there we call, and this is a very classic SaaS example, which is called the LTV to Cac ratio. Let me explain that to you. So basically, in a layman term, this is the lifetime value of a customer and what is the cost of acquisition. So if the lifetime value of a customer is, let's say, $500,000 and the cost of acquisition is $100,000, it's actually a pretty good ratio. And basically, the cost of acquisition is your marketing and sales expense, and lifetime value is basically the revenue you get from the customers, rather the margin or the gross margin of the revenue you get from customers. And for that, in emerging markets, we need to look at things like, from a cost of acquisition standpoint, there are different channels to acquire customers. The cheapest channel is the freemium or the e-commerce channel. Then there's the partner channel. Then there's inside sales and field sales. The more you go towards the right side of the spectrum, the more expensive is your cost of acquisition. So for us in Asia especially, the focus has been actually to lead with partners. Like we have partners in a lot of countries across Asia, and then looking at the complexity of each market, we actually said we'll only focus on 10 countries in APAC with HubSpot to begin with, where we felt that the overall market assessment score was higher and the profitability was higher. And then we were getting enough leads from that market. So those three things put together, we decided to focus on 10 markets or 10 countries across APAC at this point of time.
Was Thailand one of them?
Yes, Thailand is definitely one of them.
Yeah.
Yes.
Great. So to the audience here, who knows HubSpot, by the way? Raise your hands. So there's a lot of work to do here, but you're B2B, so that's fine. I recommend you all to go to their site because they have some of the best content out there when it comes to marketing. It's also a marketing platform, but you're very knowledgeable in the space. And what I really like about your content strategy is you're super open about it, right? You're just sharing, like we have a 3-step formula for our international expansion. Is that also, can I find that online? Is it something you've actually published?
Yes, in fact, we do have a proper deck on this topic with like a 50-slide deck where any company can pick that up. Even if you're not a tech player, you can actually adopt some of those examples from that deck and apply it. So Hubspot, one of our philosophies is about transparency, and we value that a lot. So we share as much as we can because we believe that the whole inbound methodology is all about, first you need to give value to your customers before you extract value. So you need to add value before you extract value. And you can add value through amazing content, which includes some of these strategies which we shared.
Yeah, and so I recommend you all to go to the website, and then probably you need to download the deck and probably need to fill out the form, and that is basically where your inbound strategy...
That's true, yeah. But first we will add value before we extract value.
First. Fair play. So 6 years ago, HubSpot started to grow international, and you're operating also from Singapore. We've heard from MessageBird, they are basically, when they go to a country, the people started working from their Singapore office to create a certain culture. Is that also the same thing you do, or do you hire directly in the countries where you're?
No, so we have a similar concept like MessageBird as well. We also want to be very cautious about our culture. So every office we have in APAC, we have 3 offices in Tokyo, Sydney, and Singapore. All the 3 offices are fully functional office with sales, marketing, support, and services teams working together. And whenever we need to go in the market, like our people do fly in and fly out. But like I said earlier, we also have a pretty strong partner ecosystem because the partners can really help us to bring the breadth and the length in the market, which we can't do with a direct sales team as such.
So this seems to be kind of like the formula. I think Booking as well has a similar formula for if you do a country by country approach, is actually to bring the talent into your headquarters or your regional quarters, train them there, fly them out to the countries in order to set up the businesses there. And once you establish a certain amount of customers, then you might actually hire locally. Is that correct if I say so? Yeah?
Yeah, we actually have kind of, I think we put the number of people that you need to have in an office to create culture is 4 or 5. So you assume that you want to hire a manager and kind of 4 individual contributors before we can actually deploy locally in a country.
No, I was going to say, I think that keeping the same culture when you're scaling, I think it's definitely one of the most important things. And at Booking.com, we have more than 200 offices, right? And we have been working extremely strong in the sense of making sure that the culture is the same across the board, right? And that is something easy to say, harder to do. And certain things that for us worked was to have pretty strong core values. In our case, is to be a data-driven company, making sure that we have a bottoms-up organization, and then have the local leaders in all the offices to keep and maintain that culture. And for that, I strongly personally think that it's the middle management and the first layer of management who can drive that culture and can drive that behavior to keep it consistent. And we've seen that across the world, no matter where you go, if it's in Europe, if it's in Americas, or even in Asia.
And so maybe something that you all don't know, but I've done some research on this, and it's actually now the go-to or the standard strategy that all the large companies are following. And obviously, you probably have heard of Uber. They had an inverse strategy. So they were just hiring like PhDs in countries in Paris, in Tokyo, and New York, etc. Not in New York, but whatever, outside of the US. And then go to market. And then that didn't work because of the culture. And then there was one guy coming in, and he changed it. Because he had 20 years of experience in this same model, and it was your founder, was the founder of Booking.com, Kees Kolen, and he changed the model. So he flew everybody back to San Francisco, trained them, infused them with the Uber culture, and then flew them out back again. And that seems to be now kind of like the standard that basically all the companies here are following, and I think is now leading. But I don't think you knew this, but
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that we have had a very strong culture since day one, and definitely Kees Kolen, one of our former CEOs, it was participating on that. And those values, and I've just mentioned two of them, being data-driven, bottoms up, but my belief is that no matter which are those fundamentals, but make sure that those fundamentals are strong and that are able to copy-paste with behaviors from basically everywhere where you go. And of course, there will be certain differences in cultures in different countries, but I think the fundamentals of it, they need to stay true. And that is one of the keys of successes of Booking.com.
So when you have a global software company, you get questions. Your customers are different everywhere. So yes, localization, translation, etc., those type of things, that's pretty standard. But you also get feature requests coming in from your customers from different countries. How do you manage like product development from a country or from a region back to HQ or wherever the product is being built? Can you say something about that at HubSpot?
Yeah. I think that's a very valid point. And again, I've been in the Asia market for the last 20 years, and our demands from the Asia customers overall are very different and unique as compared to, let's say, EMEA or LATAM or North America. And for us, we have a channel, again, like I said earlier, my whole philosophy in the B2B world especially is you have to lead with partners in Asia. So we have a partner advisory council, which we meet up with every month, along with the product team, where they give us feedback about, hey, this is what's happening in the market, let's say in Thailand or in Singapore or wherever we operate. And they give us a lot of feedback about this is what the market would like to see. These are the features they would want to HubSpot to bring into the market. And we started working on some of those. Again, this is early days for us. Like I said, I've just been here for a year at HubSpot, but that's something we have started actively doing now. And we're working on some feature for the future, which are actually very much market-driven inputs.
But are there development teams or product teams focusing on like creating features for Asian market within HubSpot?
Yes. So there is not like a separate team, but within that product teams, we did a bit of a market survey as well. We got some product folks to come into the Asian markets and meet up with customers and partners, do some focused group discussions as well. So we are very obsessed about the international market as such, and Asia is a big growth engine for me.
And to give an example, I guess we can't go without it, but is integrations with Line, WeChat.
Yes.
Whatever
so,
it's called in Korea.
I think Asia runs on pretty much those, like WeChat, Line, and WhatsApp are the three top integrations, which is a request from all our customers across Asia, and that's something we are definitely looking into very seriously.
So, when you opened the Asian market, was that already in the product? Because to me, that sounds like a must-have feature in order to go into this market.
No, we did not. And again, we don't have it yet, but that's something which we have now heard loud and clear from our customers that they want that integration to happen.
So then, once you have it, the market, you have a good selling point.
Absolutely, yes. Yeah.
You're waiting for it.
I can't wait.
Where HubSpot is Boston, right?
Boston-based, yes.
It's live streamed on Facebook. I know your boss is watching, so tell him.
We need the integrations.
Very good. Is that same for MessageBird?
Yeah, I think the product side is a very interesting question because we don't have development resource out here in Asia as MessageBird. It is all centralized. But I think the interesting thing is that we're in the communication space, and I think the interesting thing about Asia is that actually, for the first time, for a digital trend, is leading the world. If you think about how consumers are acting in markets like Thailand online or China on WeChat, it is completely different to the rest of the world, right? Friends of mine who come back from China and come visit me in Singapore, they think we're living in the past. They see how we bank, They see how we communicate with brands, and they think it's in the past. So the good thing for MessageBird is that a lot of our product roadmap is driven by our Asian customers because of that proximity to these platforms and the expectation on consumers, as I said, the digital native consumers who expect brands to be better, to have a very good digital footprint, which includes all of the messaging channels.
But obviously, MessageBird is known for text messages, but you have a full communication platform around it nowadays. But are you also sending push messages through the WeChats and WhatsApps?
Yeah, so I think we were one of the first platforms in Asia to natively offer WeChat, Line, Telegram, and WhatsApp Business for API, which is just launched as well. And I would say that our Asian footprint is now leading the business in the sales of these, let's say, innovative messaging platforms.
And when you started opening your APAC office, was that already in the product, or was that in progress?
I think we identified from a very early stage that whilst an SMS is a very powerful way to get a simple message across, it's not a way that users communicate. If you think about how we communicate with each other or how I communicate with groups of my friends, it is miles apart how businesses are communicating with their customers. So we've always believed that the growth of of our industry and the growth of our business will be really empowering that kind of transformation to make it as easy for a business to communicate as we do with each other on the messaging apps.
I actually totally agree with Richard in the sense that you have to follow your customers, and in our case, it's very particularly interesting the situation within Asia Pacific, because as I said before, we just follow and build our products depending on our customers tell us in the A/B testing, but not only to drive the better experience possible inside APAC, we're also seeing certain trends that are happening here that can be implemented in the future in other parts of the world. I see trends like the super apps, the rise of the super apps, where you want one platform to deliver a global experience. We're seeing that upcoming. And that is one of the reasons, for example, that we are actually building the Connected Trip, which is basically the idea that Booking has to deliver not only accommodations to our customers, but also the rest of the parts of the trip. You name it, from transport to things to the destination, to how we're going to influence and how we're going to inspire you to the destinations where to travel. And I think that it's quite important, not only for the current performance, but also looking in the future. And Asia Pacific is one of the top regions in terms of innovation in that sense.
And that full experience of the trip, are you also using partners for that? Like when it comes to transportation, like could be Grab here, could be Uber somewhere else, or are we seeing a Booking.com taxi service coming up?
Well, look, we really do think that our customers tell us, hey, we are very happy with the service that you're providing with accommodations, and we want you to help us navigating across the whole trip. But you're right, I think that it's also very interesting to have partnerships. As a matter of fact, yesterday we launched our cooperation with Grab. So basically, you can book accommodation in the Grab app through Booking.com, but also you can ride-hail a car in Booking.com app through Grab service. So these are things that we're doing. I said Grab in Southeast Asia, but we're also having a partnership with Didi in China, which gives us more than 30 million access to drivers. We also are in the attractions and experiences field. We have 78 cities already live in Asia Pacific where you can enjoy any type of attraction in your destination. And we think that through this technology of the super apps and the machine learning, we are going to be able to deliver a great experience for our customer, again, from the beginning until the end of the trip.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think it's not necessarily a new strategy for Booking, but it came with a new CEO. You recently have a new CEO, and he, vocally said kind of like, this is the way we want to go, right?
Well, yeah, indeed. Glenn Fogel is our CEO, and it's great to have him, to be honest. He's been 20 years in the industry, and he knows the company very, very well, right? He's been very active across all the brands of Booking Holdings, and it's great to have him because he has this holistic overview about the experience trip, right? And that brings a lot of value to us.
one last question about your international strategy. So, because MessageBird and HubSpot are both B2B, they can pick their countries where to go. But for booking, I would say you need to be everywhere because your customers are flying everywhere. So, is that also so that requires kind of like that probably does require a lot of capital because you need to be there. Otherwise, somebody else can basically take that market from you and do the reverse, right? Is that, am I?
Yeah, well,
correct
since the
there?
beginning, as I said at the beginning, right, we always wanted to be global, and therefore we build up a scalable product that we could bring across the world. And then the important thing, though, is in a second stage, how you're going to make sure that you're going to be localizing your product to make sure that you're also catering to the different needs of the customers. I think it's easier to go from a global and then to localize than the other way around. And the reason is that it's very hard to build an ad hoc product or multiple products at the same time. So that's why we decided the first strategy of going global and then localizing and catering to the needs of our customers. It has been working for us, and this is the model that we're following.
And from a consumer perspective, I think Booking.com made a big progression in terms of like brand recognition. The mobile app got a lot better.
Thank you. We're getting there.
But there's also competition, and it came from maybe an unexpected angle. And I think you know the company that we're talking about, Airbnb in this case. But they recently moved into hotels as well, right? By the acquisition of Hotel Tonight. And I'm a customer. I'm a big fan of Booking. I use it. But I am also using Hotel Tonight, for instance, because I'm just basically, I want the best price. That's basically what I want, right? So how are you going to attract or keep the users within your system? How do you do that?
No, of course, and look, we embrace competition, right? I think the travel industry is a $1 trillion industry, and there's room for everyone. And the competition, at the end of the day, makes us better. It makes the customers have a better product, and we accept that and we embrace that. Currently, we are having more than 28 million listings in terms of partners that work with us. And in the space of vacation rentals, we're currently having around 6 million listings, which is actually a huge number, including
That's actually
30...
bigger than Airbnb has.
Yeah,
right?
and 30 unique places to stay, right? From treetop houses to igloos to a Navacondo in New Zealand and things like that. So at the end of the day, we're going to follow our customers. We are always very oriented on the things that we can control. We are always focused trying to build up the best products to our customers, despite what the competitors are going to do. And that is something that is ingrained in our culture, and we'll keep doing that.
Perfect, thanks. Maybe a last word from the three of you, if because our time is up, unfortunately, and you have to catch a plane, right? Big moments are going to happen soon. Maybe a last word on if you can give any tips. Maybe a last tip to the audience if they're thinking of expanding. Maybe boil it down to what is the book you would recommend?
Well, I can give a tip for sure. And we at HubSpot, we work a lot with startups and SMEs. And I think a lot of startups and SMEs actually do not fail because of starvation. They fail because of overeating. Which basically means that if you end up taking too many customers on board and you're not able to service them well, the word of mouth gets spreaded very fast. And then everyone knows that you don't serve your customers well, and you die very fast. So I would say, take one step at a time. Really nail your playbook very well in your current market, and then take the next step through inbound, where you can let the market pull you in before you start forcing yourself on a market.
Thanks.
For me, it would be focus. I think pick your beachhead, solve the whole problem within that beachhead. And what I mean by that is, if you think of a localization on a scale of 1 to 10, write down the factors of what you think you're going to need to be successful. Go to 8 because you'll never, ever, I guess, be able to predict the level of localization that you truly need. I think it's always going to go further than you anticipate. But really pick that beachhead and focus all your efforts on that market, solve it, win it, and then use that as a reference to go into other markets.
Yeah, I would say that make sure that your competitive advantage is scalable, make sure that your product is scalable, and then adapt it wherever you're going, right? I would say be brave, fail fast, small, but fast and smart, and learn as much as you can.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Angel, Richard, Shahid.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.